What would you do if you discovered a secret family diary? The heavy timber floor of the gallery creaked under footsteps, echoing hollowly as Ella stood rigid, her eyes darting over the crowd of polished, indifferent faces. The ceiling's chipped plaster filtered a cold, gray light that pooled like a stagnant tide upon the scattered canvases. Paint, dried in thick ridges and glossy smudges, clung stubbornly to her hands, an imprint of failure as palpable as the sting blooming in her throat. A gust of sharp salt wind slipped beneath the cracked window frame, carrying with it the harsh, ceaseless murmuring of the ocean invisible beyond the gallery walls. The registry clerk's voice cut through the murmurings, slicing through the mounting tension. "Ella, your work, it just doesn't resonate. It's lacking uninspired." Each word landed with surgical precision, exposed under the hollow eyes of the gallery's elite. Whispers fluttered like restless wings, some carried a shade of pity, others barely concealed disdain. Ella's chest constricted under the weight of silent judgment. The room felt suddenly cavernous, the muted blues of storm-filtered daylight a cold mirror to her sinking spirit. Another show, another disconnect. The gallery director's voice was layered with disappointment and finality. "We need art that moves the viewer, not paintings that blend into forgetfulness." The walls seemed to close in, the glint of polished frames and muted canvases a gallery of her unraveling self. Her gaze dropped to the splattered canvas before her, a barely discernible tempest of blues and grays, the ocean's unrest reflected but trapped, muted and still. A soft cough broke the tense silence as a fellow artist stepped forward. "Ella, maybe you need to step back. Find your voice again." The words felt like a nudge into an abyss. Ella's hands trembled slightly, fingers unconsciously tracing the faint bruises of dried paint, her lifeline to a calling now doubted. Still, beneath the weight of humiliation, a fragile pulse of defiance throbbed quietly, hidden beneath layered shame. The crowd began to disperse, footsteps fading into the oppressive quiet. Ella remained rooted, her eyes locked on the oceanic canvas, a silent communion of lost dreams and unspoken possibilities. Outside, the fog hugged the coastline, thick and suffocating, swallowing the edges of world and mind alike. The distant cries of seagulls pierced the cold Ira mournful soundtrack to her isolation. In that moment of stillness, Ella's breath caught not in surrender, but in the faint, unseen grip of a secret waiting beneath layers of time and memory. The gallery lights dimmed, plunging the room into shadow. Her reflection flickered in the tall, narrow mirror across the room, two faces merging, fractured identities yet to be reconciled. The ocean waves crashed relentlessly beyond the fog, a wild, unyielding rhythm echoing the storm within her. She wiped her hands on her paint-stained skirt, the marks a reminder of past attempts, failures etched in pigment and passion. Ella's eyes lingered on her reflection one last time as the glass fogged slightly with her breath. The gallery emptied, the door closing with a dull thud, casting her back into the cold, gray-blue world where whispers of forgotten truths awaited beneath the tide. The door to the gallery swung shut behind Ella with a hollow clang, the sound swallowed quickly by the empty, fog-shrouded street. Her footsteps echoed softly against the uneven cobblestones, each one a muted drumbeat to the ache expanding in her chest. The damp, salt-laden air was thick with the scent of seaweed and decay, seeping through the narrow alleys lined with the peeling facades of Victorian mansions, statues frozen in a long-forgotten melancholy. Ella's breath came shallow and uneven as she wrapped her threadbare coat tighter around her, paint-smudged hands curled into numb fists. The canvas from the gallery, once a proud expression of her struggle, now felt like a bitter reminder of failure, hiding beneath the weight of cold indifference. Her green eyes, bright but dulled by exhaustion, reflected the swirling mists that clung to the shore like ghosts of memory. Each wave that crashed against the jagged rocks seemed to whisper questions she dared not answer aloud. Was she enough? Did she ever truly belong in the world she had tried to claim? The soft rustle of leaves accompanied her as she climbed the worn steps to her solitary home, an aging cottage perched precariously close to the cliff's edge. Inside, The dim gray-blue light filtered through gauzy curtains, casting spectral patterns across dust-coated surfaces and a collection of neglected brushes and half-finished sketches. The silence was thick, pervasive, a stillness that pressed on her skin like wet wool. On the kitchen table, an envelope sat plain and unassuming, its edges softened by time. The handwriting was unfamiliar, yet the weight of the paper inside promised change, a fissure in the fabric of her day-to-day despair. Her fingers trembled as she pulled back the flap, revealing the embossed return address of a law firm and the formal language of inheritance. Miss Ella Harper, the letter began, its crisp words a quiet tremor. This correspondence serves to inform you of your late great-aunt's bequest in the form of a property located at the edge of Chesterton Bay. Ella's pulse raced, waves of confusion and reluctant hope mingling in her veins. The mansion, an imposing silhouette against the misty coastline, had always been whispered about in the town's darker corners, a relic of secrets and sorrows. Why this sudden inheritance? Why now? Her gaze drifted to the rain-smeared window, the world outside blurred into a canvas of indistinct shapes and muted colors. The ocean beyond roared with timeless power, relentless and unchanging, yet within its wildness lay a promise of transformation. She folded the letter slowly, the edges creasing beneath her fingertips. Somewhere deep inside, a flicker stirred, a cautious spark of curiosity daring to kindle amid the frozen embers of her spirit. The wind shifted abruptly, shaking the panes as if demanding answers. Ella's eyes settled on the jagged horizon where sky collided with sea, a liminal space where past and future blurred. A soft murmur swept through the room, like a secret waiting to be told. The moment hung suspended, a fragile breath between what was lost and what might yet be found. Ella reached for her coat again, this time with steady hands, the weight of the letter a compass pointing toward a path shrouded in shadow and light. The journey was uncertain, the destination veiled in mystery, but the quiet trembling of her heart spoke volumes, a silent vow to seek, to uncover, to awaken. Outside, the fog thickened, swallowing the edges of the world, as Ella stepped forward toward the mansion, toward the secrets waiting patiently beneath walls whispered to hold twin memories and forgotten truths. Ella's footsteps echoed against the winding path leading to the mansion, the ancient structure looming before her like a monolith carved from shadows and fog. Its Victorian spires pierced the low-hanging gray sky, veiled by the restless mist rolling in from the restless sea. The wind tugged at her curly hair and the worn hems of her bohemian blouse, carrying with it a salty chill that seemed to seep beneath her skin, stirring a tempest of latent memories and buried secrets. Her green eyes, sharp yet clouded with uncertainty, scanned the weathered facades, peeling paint and twisted iron balconies whispered of forgotten stories. The mansion was a sleeping giant, perched on the edge of time, and now thrust open to her as an unwitting guardian of her bloodline's shadowed past. The heavy oak door creaked open with a hesitant groan, revealing a foyer bathed in twilight blues and soft tawny shadows. Dust motes hovered like restless spirits in the shafts of light cast through stained glass windows, dancing slowly as if reluctant to settle. The scent of aged wood, mingled with damp stone and faded lavender, clung to the Ira perfume of nostalgia and neglect. Ella's fingers brushed the peeling wallpaper, textured and fragile beneath her touch, a tactile connection to generations lost. Her breath caught when the floorboards moaned underfoot, betraying the stillness with each tentative step. Drawn deeper into the house, she discovered a narrow staircase spiraling upward, its wrought iron railing etched with intricate, curling vines. She ascended slowly, the noise swallowed by the house's dense stillness. At the top, a long corridor stretched into darkness, punctuated by heavy wooden doors, some ajar, some sealed tight like the secrets they concealed. In a room stained by time, she found Ida's small, leather-bound diary nestled under a floorboard, hidden and forgotten. The cover was cracked, the pages yellowed but preserved, fragile as a whispered promise. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened it, the scent of aged paper rising, a scent that felt like an invitation. The script inside was meticulous, looping elegantly across the page, and when her eyes fell upon a name she knew yet couldn't quite place, her heart stuttered. It was hers, but written beside another's, like an echo from a shadowed mirror. The diary spoke of a twin, a secret kept beneath layers of silence and protective distance. Each entry peeled back another veil, childhood memories shared in fragmented dreams, whispered fears hidden from the world, and the gentle ache of lives intertwined yet divided. Ella's gaze wandered to a cracked mirror resting against the wall, its surface fractured and clouded. She approached hesitantly, eyes seeking her reflection amid the shards, where her own green stare met Herbert's set against a backdrop of absence, multiplicity, and mystery. The ocean's distant roar filled the silence, the waves relentlessly shaping and reshaping the shore, emblematic of the turmoil swelling within her. The diary was more than a book. It was a bridge across time, a key to unraveling the knot of identity and legacy that now threatened to unravel her world. Her breath hitched, the weight of her dismissal in the gallery ebbing away, replaced by a fragile yet fierce determination. The rejected painter was no longer just a lost soul. She was the heir to a hidden truth, a story waiting to be reclaimed. Light filtered through the window, catching dust and turning it into Starsa constellation, guiding her into the uncharted night ahead. The diary's pages fluttered softly, as if alive with the secrets yet to be told. Ella's hand closed over the worn leather, sealing a silent vow. She would unfold this story not just for herself, but for the twin shadowed in forgotten history, and for the truth buried beneath the tide. The mansion breathed around her, a living entity of uncertain promises, as she turned away from the mirror, ready to step into the depths of her inheritance, into a world where revelation and redemption awaited like the tides themselves. The mansion's creaking floorboards whispered beneath Ella's cautious steps as she wandered deeper into the labyrinth of faded grandeur. The heavy scent of wood polished long ago mingled with the damp chill that seeped through cracked window panes, cocooning the space in a veil of mystery that felt both oppressive and electrifying. Shafts of muted gray-blue light drizzled through stained glass, casting fragmented colors across walls draped with dust-laden tapestries whose patterns blurred like forgotten memories. In the parlor, Ella trailed her fingers along the cracked spine of an ancient book resting atop a disheveled table. The faded ink and curling pages beckoned, promising stories layered with time and shadow. Her knuckles bore remnants of paint, the evidence of nights wrestled with empty canvases and growing frustration, yet amid all that, something within the diary's delicate script sparked a restless flicker. Sitting beneath a window streaked with rain and sea spray, she opened the diary and entered into a confessional world written in a noble hand, confessions of a twin lost to silence, reflections that echoed unsettlingly with her own fragmented thoughts. The language was rich with emotion, the words threading a connection through time, bridging a gap of absence she had never fully comprehended. The soft creak of the mansion settled into a rhythmic pulse that matched her own heartbeat, every whisper of the draft against the window a call deeper into the enigma that was her heritage. The diary revealed shards of a past caught between love and ache, secrets folded into the margins like fragile, painted wings. She was here, whispered the sea wind, a haunting liaison between past and present, as Ella's fingers traced a passage that spoke of shared dreams and bitter divides. Unseen tears glossed her lashes as she felt unmoored and anchored, all at once drawn toward an identity fragmented but yearning for wholeness. Outside, the ocean waves crashed against jagged cliffs, the chaotic rhythm pulsing with a fierce, relentless energy, a metaphor spun by nature of her own tumbling emotions. The house groaned mournfully as if awakening from slumber, the diary pages rustling softly as if urging her to delve further, to embrace the enigma. A sudden noise startled Hera, floorboard's subtle shift, or perhaps a sigh carried by the draft. Ella's heart quickened. The mansion was not as empty as it seemed. The sensation of eyes unseen sparked a spark of fear and daring curiosity fused within. Shutting the diary reluctantly, she tucked it beneath her arm, her resolve hardening like stone shaped by relentless waves. The secrets she uncovered were not just whispers of the past but a map toward redefining herself, a rebirth painted in shadows and synergies. Steeling herself, Ella rose and ventured onward, steps echoing with new purpose, even as the storm gathering outside mirrored the tempest within. The mansion, in all its Gothic decay and haunting beauty, had become both crucible and canvas for the artist's resurgence. The diary was a compass pointing to uncharted territories in identity and passion, its fragile trust a challenge she was beginning to accept. Her breath mingled with the cold air as she passed a tall, fractured mirror, her reflection fragmented but unbroken, a duality that defined her more wholly than before. Across the darkened glass, the swirling mist pressed close, a reminder that transformation was as murky and vital as the sea itself. The room fell silent save for the distant roar of the ocean and the gentle rustle of the pages in her hand, a symphony for the awakening of a lost self. Yet even in this fragile ascent, questions lingered like shadows refusing to settle. Who else had walked these halls in secret? What truths lay buried beneath the weight of centuries? And could the fragile light she carried pierce the growing darkness? As Ella paused at the stairwell, gaze fixed on the depths below where light wavered and shadows gathered, the house seemed to breathe with anticipation, holding its secrets close. Her journey had begun anew, fragile yet irrevocable, a brushstroke on the vast canvas of a destiny unfolding amid fog, waves, and whispered truths. The town's narrow streets seemed to close tighter around Ella as she navigated her way through scattered groups of locals whose faces were carved with suspicion and half-remembered tales. The daylight was cold and flickering, dimmed by the persistent gray overcast, seeping into the alleys like a creeping shadow. Every step echoed a clash of emotions within her, hope tangled with confusion, courage entangled with doubt. She pulled her coat tighter, the paint-stained cuffs pressing against her wrists like a muted reminder of struggles past. The diary had opened doors to a past unspoken and a future uncertain, but the townsfolk's glances dropped away when she sought answers. Whispers fluttered just beyond reach, reinforcing her growing sense of isolation. At a local cafe, under the strained warmth of overhead bulbs, Ella approached Mrs. Whitaker, an elderly woman whose eyes held the flickering embers of long-buried memories. "Your family's history, there's more than you know," Mrs. Whitaker murmured, fingers clutching a faded photograph, its edges curled like brittle wings. "But not all truths bring solace. Some awaken ghosts better left asleep." Ella's voice was a carefully measured tremble. "I need to understand." "Who were they? My family? My twin?" The woman's gaze wavered, a flicker of fear and sorrow crossing her lined face. "Mr. Ashby. A rival once close, then far darker. They say shadows crossed the family line, secrets wrapped in silence, stitched tight." Outside, distant church bells tolled mournfully, their cadence underscoring the weight of revelation and the burden of legacy. Ella's heart pounded, a turbulent sea of yearning and restraint. Along the fog-drenched pier, weathered fishermen's faces were unreadable, eyes narrowed against the gusting winds. Rumors of disappearances, veiled threats veiled in polite nods, and stories hinted at a long-standing schism had taken root beneath the town's serene facade. Yet no one would say more. Nightfall found Ella in the mansion's attic, surrounded by relics and dust, the air thick with the scent of forgotten time. The diary lay open on her lap, its fragile pages absorbing the lamplight. Her eyes traced the cryptic phrases penned long ago, fingers trembling at the ache within the ink secrets. The house seemed to breathe, each creak a sigh, each shadow a whisper. The sea's distant roar pressed against the fractured windows like a relentless reminder of the unseen tides shaping her fate. Suddenly, a sharp knock echoed through the silence, startling her. Footsteps approached, hesitant yet deliberate. The mansion's heavy door sagged open, revealing a presence cloaked in ambiguity. "Ella," came the voice, soft yet edged with urgency. "There are things here you don't yet understand, people watching, tides turning. Be cautious." Her heart seized, the fragile moment stretched taut between danger and hope. The visitor's eyes held a flicker of familiarity, of shared burdens and unsaid alliances. As the visitor slipped away into the misty night, Ella's gaze lifted once more to the diary's faint, faded ink. Each revelation weighed heavier, yet beneath it pulsed a defiant spark of fragile promise that the truth, no matter how tangled, would not be silenced. The night deepened around the mansion, the ocean's waves hammering time itself. Ella's fingers closed stubbornly over the diary's spine, a silent vow she would delve deeper into the shadows of her past, no matter the cost. In the vast quiet, the mansion waited, a guardian of secrets that would unravel destinies and reshape the fragile light of a troubled future. The library's dim light was fragile, filtering through stained glass to scatter golden frayed patches upon Ella's tense face. She sat at the ancient oak desk, the diary lying open beside a neatly folded letter she'd just found stuffed into a secret compartment of the mansion's drawer. Her eyes traced each line of calligraphy, the paper whispering of a family rival, a shadowy figure whose name was never spoken above a whisper, yet whose presence had indelibly marked generations. Her heart surged, part dread, part fierce determination as she folded the letter carefully. The mansion seemed to breathe around her. Its creaks and sighs were like the walls itself mourning the secrets it kept. The ocean's distant thunder rolled through broken windows, waves crashing in a rhythmic agony, echoing the turmoil rising within. Memories flickered unbidden, her mother's silent refusals when confronted about old photographs, the muffled tension in family gatherings, the invisible chasms between faces she once loved. The mirror in her room, cracked but unyielding, reflected fragments of these truths of fractured identity piled with layers of hidden sorrow and unspoken betrayals. A sudden vibration from the phone on the desk startled her, an unknown caller breaking the heavy silence. She hesitated, then answered, voice steady but weary. "Ella." The voice was low, urgent, familiar yet strained. "You're closer than you know. But some truths, they come at a price. Be careful who you trust." The line went dead. The room fell into a hush, deeper than before. Ella's fingers tightened around the diary's spine, the pages whispering stories of love and loss, search and abandonment. Her gaze drifted to the window, the twilight ocean before her, a swirling, endless dance of light and shadow, an eternal reflection of the tempest within her. She whispered, "Who am I really? And who was she?" The diary's words, the mirror's fractured reflection, the ocean's ceaseless waves, each a symbol of a fractured self yearning to be whole. As night deepened, Ella felt the weight of the past pressing heavy, the cost of digging deeper now manifesting in the fragile trust fraying within herself and around her. The mysteries of the twin, the unspoken agony of family rivalries, and the thin line between love and deceit wove into a tapestry she was both afraid and compelled to unravel. She stood slowly, the old floor groaning beneath her feet, each step a conversation with ghosts. In the shadows near the doorway, a figure moved, a presence unseen until now. Ella's breath caught. The distance between revelation and ruin stretched taut. Her pulse thundered the same rhythm as the waves below, relentless, crashing, defining the shore anew. Her hand brushed the cracked mirror as she passed, a silent promise to confront the fractured truth, no matter the cost. And as the moonlight dipped behind roiling clouds, the secrets within the diary coalesced into a sharp, searing clarity, a turning point where the past was no longer just a shadow but an active force, set to reshape her destiny and plunge her into the darkest depths of discovery. The mansion held its breath, and so did Ella. The story she thought she knew was only the surface of a deeper, more tangled truth, one that would test not just her art, but her very identity. The journey ahead was unforgiving and uncertain, but also brimming with the fragile but undeniable promise of redemption. The storm had settled into a relentless drizzle that seeped through the cracks of the mansion's ancient windows, casting cold, gray-blue shadows across the peeling wallpaper. Ella sat on the floor of her dimly lit room, the edges of her world blurred by the heavy fog pressing against the glass. The once comforting familiarity of the mansion now felt alien, its walls closing in like a tomb. Her hands bore the grime of restless nights, paint still smeared beneath her nails, markers of a creativity suffocated by doubt and grief. The diary, once a whispered promise of hope, lay open but unread on the worn rug, its pages heavy with secrets that now seemed to mock her every attempt to grasp a sense of self. The fractured light played silently across the cracked mirror propped against the far wall. Ella's reflection was fragmented, a haunting jigsaw of identity, fractured further by the twin she was only beginning to know existed. Two images overlapped, one lost in despair, the other sparking cold with unresolved tensions. The mirror held her gaze, inviting self-confrontation but offering no comfort. Outside, the relentless moan of the ocean was a haunting lullaby, its waves battering rocky cliffs with unforgiving persistence. The wild sea was a cruel reflection of her inner tempest, a ceaseless turmoil where hope and loss collided in jagged crescendos. Messages left unanswered, the distance with her mother growing insurmountable. Friends had retreated, their words of support hollow against the weight of suspicion and withdrawn silences. Each revelation from the diary seemed to unravel the fragile threads tethering her to the life she once knew. Her breath caught, shallow and uneven, as the mansion seemed to exhale its own sorrow with every creak and sigh. The storm outside mirrored the one within, shadows pooling in dark corners where light dared not linger. Ella's fingers trembled as they hovered over a photograph, edges frayed and colors faded, a forgotten face staring back, both unfamiliar and achingly close. The twin who had been erased from memory but remained a ghost haunting her every thought. Voices echoed faintly down the hallway, a confrontation she fled, a love strained under the weight of secrets, a fracture spreading deeper than any wound. The boundaries of trust dissolved, leaving isolation like a veil, suffocating and inescapable. Words whispered in moments of fragile vulnerability slipped away, replaced by cold silences thick with unspoken accusations and pain. In the blackness, she traced the scar on her arm, a silent testament to battles fought but not yet won, a symbol of perseverance drowning in the swelling flood of despair. The diary's pages fluttered silently in the draft, a reminder of promises broken and the haunting vastness of unknown truths. Time distended, each second stretching longer, a slow unraveling of the self. Ella's gaze lifted once more to the mirror where two faces stared back, separated by fragile mirrors of memory and identity. The walls closed tighter, the air grew heavier, and the storm outside sang a dirge for innocence lost. Ella's breath hitched as the depth of her descent pressed in, an abyss where past and present collided into a shapeless void, threatening to consume the fragile light that still flickered within. And in that suffocating silence, with the ocean's relentless song as her only company, she felt the shattering of everything held dear, the unraveling of identity and the daunting, lonely expanse of an uncertain future. The night had thickened into a heavy, suffocating cloak that draped the mansion and its surroundings in complete, oppressive silence. The only illumination was the pale, ghostly light of a cloudy moon, filtered through layers of damp fog that clung like a shroud to the crumbling stones and peeling paint of the old estate. Ella sat motionless on the floor of the dimly lit room, the echo of the day's fractures still ringing loudly within her chest. Cold seeped into her bones through the cracked window frames, curling around her fingers tangled in the folds of a threadbare shawl. The scattered remains of her once bright spirit lay like broken shards at her feet. Her gaze, distant and unfocused, fixed on the cracked mirror leaning against the wall, a jagged reflection fractured into unsettling fragments, each shard casting a different, distorted image of the woman she no longer fully recognized. The mirror was her only companion tonight, silently reflecting a kaleidoscope of pain and longing. The fractured faces staring back seemed to whisper questions without answers, their green eyes alight with unresolved grief and burning despair. One fragment caught the faint glow of candlelight, shimmering like a tear held frozen in glass. The diary lay open on a nearby table, its pages yellowed and worn from recent reading, but its words now seemed distant, like echoes from a past too heavy to hold. The secrets once urgent and mysterious now pressed down like a relentless tide, threatening to pull her under. Ella's breath came shallow, forming faint clouds in the chill air. The silence weighed on her like a physical force, broken only by the distant, relentless roar of the ocean. The waves crashed endlessly against hidden cliffs in the blackness outside, a relentless rhythm of destruction and renewal. In the suffocating solitude, memories of fractured conversations, stifled accusations, and a mother's cold, unyielding silence converged into a suffocating tempest. The faces of friends and family blurred with the shadows, some gone, others withdrawn, and all distant as the stars swallowed by the fog. Ella's hands trembled as they brushed against the faded pages of the diary once more. It was no longer a beacon but a burden, a map of betrayal and loss etched into ink and paper. Her heart ached with a hollow emptiness, a vast ocean within bereft of light or warmth. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in as a deep weariness settled over her. Time seemed to waver, seconds stretching into an endless night that mirrored the void opening inside her. A fragile gust stirred the candles, casting flickering shadows that danced across her paling face, shadows that seemed to reach toward her, mocking and relentless. The scar on her arm itched faintly, a bitter reminder that even the body held the history of pain she could not escape. Words once sought for meaning and hope had all but decided to desert her lips. Her voice was lost within the echoing emptiness, swallowed silently by the dark room. As the fog thickened against the frosted glass and the sea sounded its ceaseless requiem, Ella slowly lowered her gaze. The fractured mirror reflected her bowed head, the fractured light cocooning a figure slipping deeper into the silent abyss. And there, in the weightless hush before the dawn, the last flickers of hope dimmed until all that remained was an aching stillness, a pause on the brink of surrender. The house was cloaked in an oppressive silence that seemed to absorb even the faintest whisper of sound. Ella sat curled on the floor of her cold bedroom, the dim gray light casting long, blurred shadows that merged with the darkness pooling at the corners. The diary lay beside her, its fragile pages worn and bent, echoing the fractured state of her own spirit. Her fingers lingered on the delicate script, tracing lines she had read before but now seemed to whisper with a new voice, a faint murmur beneath the weight of despair. Outside, the relentless ocean waves crashed endlessly against jagged rocks, a wild symphony of chaos and constancy that mirrored the tempest raging within her. The wind howled mournfully through broken window panes, carrying with it the salty breath of the sea and the ghosts of memories she could scarcely grasp. Her gaze drifted to the cracked mirror propped up against the wall, a cruelly fractured reflection staring back at her. Fragmented images shimmered, faces overlapping, eyes haunted, lips parted in silent questions. There was Ella, but also a twin she barely remembered, a life untold and a self unseen. The mirror held her captive, an unyielding testament to the duality that defined her existence. Tears welled fiercely, blurring the shards of glass and the lines of the diary, yet beneath the flood of sorrow flickered an ember, fragile but steady. A sudden sound disturbed the stillness, the soft creak of floorboards, distant yet intimate. Ella's breath caught as her spirit stirred, cautious but undeniable. She reached slowly beneath the loose floorboard where, weeks ago, she had hidden a small, folded piece of paper, a forgotten clue from the diary, now resurfacing like a message cast afloat on the turbulent sea of her life. With trembling hands, she unfolded it, revealing faint, coded words and a sketch of the mansion's recesses she had not dared explore. The note was a whisper from the past, a glimmering thread weaving through the dark tapestry of secrets. It spoke of hidden doors and concealed rooms, places where truth might yet lay buried beneath layers of silence. Ella's chest tightened as hope began to seep through the cracks of despair, not victory, not yet, but possibility. A hesitation, a tremor of light cutting through near impenetrable gloom. She stood unsteadily, clutching the fragile paper like a lifeline, eyes drawn once more to the mirror. The fractured reflection seemed less forbidding now, almost inviting. The ocean's roar seeped faintly through her window, not as a dirge but as an ancient, steady heartbeat, a reminder that even the fiercest storms give way to calm, and that beneath the surface, life endures. Ella took a slow breath, the first measured and resolute in a long while. She stepped toward the mirror and, in a soft voice thick with newfound resolve, whispered, "This is not the end." The diary's pages fluttered lightly in the draft as if stirred by her words, a subtle signal that the story was far from over. The mansion, heavy with shadow and memory, seemed to hold its breath, waiting as Ella poised on the threshold between ruin and renewal. In the vast silence, she found her footing anew. The night was still deep, but within it, a fragile dawn began to break. The morning's light filtered through the cracked windows of the mansion, casting a muted glow over the dust motes dancing in the stagnant air. Ella stood at the threshold of her studio, a space once marred by despair but now subtly awakening with possibility. The walls, cracked and peeling, seemed to hold their breath as if waiting for her next move. A faint warmth lingered, softening the harsh shadows that had haunted her nights, faint, delicate, like the first blush of dawn after an endless night. She carried a handful of freshly mixed paints, their colors vibrant against the graying backdrop of her life. The palette was bolder now, deep reds that hinted at passion's return, earth tones whispering of stability, shimmering gold that promised hope. Her brushes, once hesitant and trembling, felt steadier in her grasp, as if fueled by a quiet, burgeoning confidence. Sitting before the canvas, Ella hesitated only a moment, the swirl of chaos and clarity vying within her. Her eyes, once clouded by doubt, now shimmered with a spark of purpose. She allowed herself to breathe, to feel, to remind herself that her truth lay in raw vulnerability, the very essence of her art. With deliberate strokes, she let her emotions bleed onto the canvas, strokes that were fearless and unrestrained, a mirror of her inner awakening. The colors were messy yet intentional, chaotic yet pure. Every line was a declaration. She was reclaiming her voice, her story, her identity. Her reflection flickered faintly in a nearby mirror, her curly hair unkempt but alive, her green eyes now fierce with a new clarity, a side to herself she had buried under layers of silence and regret. The scars on her hands and heart, once symbols of pain, now shimmered as badges of resilience. Outside, the ocean's distant rumble persisted, an eternal reminder of change's unyielding tide. The waves, relentless and shifting, echoed her internal journey, destructive yet healing. The sky above was painted with slow streaks of pink and orange, colors of renewal, of dawn breaking after the longest, gloomiest night. Ella's hand paused, hovering over the wet paint, eyes fixed on her work. For a moment, she closed her eyes, allowing the silence to settle, a quiet acknowledgement that even the deepest despair harbors the seeds of rebirth. The faintest smile touched her lips, a fragile testament to her renewed spirit. This was no final victory, but the first step, a carved-out space of hope in a landscape shadowed by loss. She knew the road ahead was long and uncertain, yet in that stillness, a quiet promise was born, that she would be brave enough to face her truths, to forge her own light, and to emerge anew. As she stepped back, her silhouette framed by the softly glowing dawn, the world seemed to hold its breath once more. A gentle gust of wind stirred the leaves outside, whispering of stories yet to be written. The journey toward wholeness, she realized, was just beginning, delicately, yet with unwavering resolve. The dawn's first light spilled across the mansion's once shadowed facade, illuminating Ella's figure as she stepped onto the weathered veranda. Her hands trembled not from hesitation, but from a fierce, burgeoning resolve. Behind her, the room her doubts had haunted now felt like a vessel transformed, filled with the silent strength of her renewed purpose. The fractured mirror in her room reflected her new visage, eyes brighter, posture steady, unshaken by the dark revelations that had once threatened to crush her spirit. Clutching a battered, paint-stained canvas, her latest expression of vulnerability and truth, Ella moved into the garden, where overgrown vines tangled with the remnants of memories long buried. The ocean's roar was distant but persistent, a relentless, primal call that echoed her internal awakening. Her breath hitched, a delicate dance of fear and hope, as she stared into the surging waves, sparkling beneath the awakening sun. In her hand, She held a jar, filled with old family photographs, fragments of a shrouded past she was determined to embrace. Slowly, she knelt by the shoreline, carefully spilling the images into the surf. The photos fluttered like fragile spirits caught in the tide, dissolving into the sea's timeless fluid, a symbolic act of release, renewal, and acceptance. Her heart thrummed with unspoken promises, saving her from a darkness rooted in secrets and shadows. Each picture fading into the water was a prayer for forgiveness, for understanding, for herself. The sun broke through the clouds, casting a golden hue over her silhouette, a luminous reminder that even the deepest wounds could foster new growth. Ella lifted her face to the sky, a faint, genuine smile forming as she took a final, steadying breath. Her hands opened in silent acknowledgement of the journey, the pain, the discovery, the truth, and her unwavering commitment to forge a new future from the wreckage. The ocean responded with a gentle swell, caressing the shore as if embracing her renewed spirit. Seconds stretched into eternity as she stood tall amidst the ebbing tide, a quiet testament to resilience amid chaos. Theories of darkness cracked and crumbled beneath the promise of dawn, and in that moment, a profound truth settled deep within her. She had not only uncovered her past but had begun to sculpt her destiny. The camera slowly pulled back, capturing her figure silhouetted against the rising sun, a solitary figure amid the vast, untouched waters. Her silhouette embodied hope reborn out of despair, a symbol that even in the depths of loss, renewal was possible. As the scene faded to a gentle, glowing horizon, Ella's gaze remained fixed on the infinite, embracing the unknown with a quiet courage ready for whatever story her future would rewrite. The dawn broke with a clarity rare in coastal fog, spilling golden light over the mansion's weathered silhouette. Ella stood at the threshold, her figure bathed in soft radiance, a symbol of renewal and strength. The air was crisp and filled with the scent of salt and hope, a stark contrast to the shadows she had fought through. Her eyes, once clouded with doubt, shone with unshakable conviction, a mirror to her internal awakening. She held the final piece, the diary, now secured in a sleek, worn leather cover close to her heart like a sacred relic. Its pages had been her guide through despair, their ink a testament to her courage and resilience. Today, she was no longer the wounded artist trembling at the precipice. She was now a woman reclaiming her truth, embodying royal resolve forged in the fires of betrayal. Ella stepped into the sunlight, her movements deliberate and unhurried. The mansion behind her was a monument of secrets turned to dust, of shadows dispelled by her newfound clarity. The once oppressive walls now seemed to breathe with renewed life, echoing her triumph, a silent feast of victory over despair. Every step she took was an act of defiance, a declaration that she had emerged from the depths of darkness into the luminous expanse of purpose. Her eyes swept across the vast landscape, cliffs battered by waves yet resilient, skies painted with hues of awakening dawn, the ocean stretching infinitely into the horizon. It was a universal promise: destruction could give way to rebirth. Close to the water's edge, Ella paused, her silhouette poised against the rising sun, as if holding back a divine truth waiting to be spoken. She lifted the diary skyward, its worn cover catching the light, a beacon of hope and the culmination of her journey. The ocean's roar softened into a gentle caress, a lullaby for the soul reborn. With a steady breath, she lowered her gaze toward the sprawling sea, an endless canvas of healing and possibility. Her hands, once trembling with grief, now extended in present, offering herself to the future. The tide lapped softly at her feet, washing away remnants of pain, leaving only the promise of a new dawn. In that moment, the universe seemed to stand still, capturing her rebirth in a single, cinematic eternity of quiet strength. A breeze fluttered the pages of the diary, whispering tales of victory amid the sea's eternal song. Ella was no longer lost, no longer fragmented. She was whole, poised at the edge of her destiny, ready to turn the pages of her story with unwavering courage. As she turned to face the horizon, her figure outlined against the rising sun, the moment bowed gracefully into silence, a visual symphony of hope, resilience, and the timeless beauty of transformation. The ocean's vast, shimmering expanse symbolized the endless promise of rebirth, beckoning her toward the infinite possibilities ahead. The sun dipped slowly beneath the horizon, casting a warm, amber glow that caressed the rugged shoreline where Ella stood, barefoot in her simple, flowing dress. The ocean stretched infinitely behind her, waves whispering a lullaby of quiet acceptance. Her face, usually etched with the marks of turmoil, was softened now, eyes shimmering with deep reflection, carrying the weight of a journey from darkness to light. In her hands, she gently cradled a small, weathered photograph, faded edges and brittle corners hinting at moments long past. Her fingers traced the outline of her own face, now a stranger in a familiar frame, and beside it, a new image. The twin she had uncovered, her mirror, her soul's other half, a silent testament to healing and union. She turned slowly, her gaze drifting over the stormy sea, sinking into an almost meditative state. Every shift of wave and gust of wind seemed to pull her deeper into understanding the pain, the secrets, the love, all woven into a tapestry of resilience. The memories of betrayal and loss now dissolved into the gentle rhythm of tides, replaced by a quiet acknowledgement that her life story was redefined, not erased but reshaped. Ella's eyes closed briefly, the cool breeze caressing her cheek, as if nature itself acknowledged the transformation unfolding within her. The scars, visible and unseen, no longer symbolized wounds but emblems of perseverance. Her chest rose and fell slowly, each breath an act of release, a surrender to the healing force of acceptance. In that moment, she felt the ocean's timeless embrace, the language of change written in shimmering reflections across the water's surface. It whispered of the future unknown yet familiar, calling her onward, beyond the shoreline, into the embrace of her newfound identity. A faint smile played on her lips, tender and genuine, a gesture of reconciliation with her past and hope for tomorrow. The horizon softened into a watercolor blur of gold and rose, the colors of sunrise and renewal converging, a visual symphony of peace. Her silhouette grew peaceful against the fading light, standing in quiet reverence. Here, amid the vast, ancient song of sea and sky, Ella found the serenity she had long sought, a gentle beginning to a life redesigned by courage, trust, and love. She lowered her head slightly, eyes still watching the horizon, surrendering to the silent promise that every ending was, indeed, a new beginning. The ocean song lingered as camera slowly withdrew, capturing her in a still moment of perfect peace, an image etched forever in the landscape of her soul. The sun hung high over the horizon, casting a warm golden hue that bathed the quiet shoreline where Ella and her sister, now her twin, walked side by side. Their footsteps pressed softly into the sand, a dance of reconciliation, healing, and unspoken understanding. The ocean's waves, relentless yet gentle, mirrored their internal tides, tumultuous past, peaceful present. Ella's gaze was tender, her eyes glistening with a mixture of tears and newfound acceptance. Her hand reached out, clasping her sister's, a symbol of broken barriers mended and trust restored. The weight of secrets, betrayal, and doubts had finally lifted, replaced by an elegant serenity etched into every gesture. Around them, the world shimmered with possibility, a canvas of endless blue and golden invitation to forge ahead, unshackled from the chains of the past. The old family photos they had released into the sea moments ago sank slowly, their edges curling as if gladly surrendering their stories to the depths, becoming a part of the eternal cycle of renewal. Ella closed her eyes briefly, feeling the freedom that came with forgiveness, the quietude of acceptance washing over her like the tide. Her face, once cloaked in shadows of doubt and pain, now radiated a soft glow, becoming a beacon of resilience and hope. Her fingers lingered on her sister's hand, a silent vow sealed in the gentle warmth of the moment. The horizon stretched before them, vast and uncharted, a symbol of infinite rebirth. The ocean's song, a lullaby of change, faded into a peaceful hush, the melody echoing the depths of her heart. She tipped her face upward, the sun's rays illuminating her smile, a gentle crown of grace and gratitude. The journey through darkness had carved her into a vessel of understanding, a testimony that even broken stories, when embraced, could forge beauty. The camera pulled back slowly, capturing the sisters framed by swirling sands and the endless seafair figures shimmering in the light of healing. The scene was a portrait of hope, a testament to the unyielding power of acceptance and love. As they continued their walk, water lapped softly at their feet, washing away remnants of pain and doubt. The ocean's embrace was a silent promise. In letting go, they had gained everything. In their unity, they found the strength to start anew. And in that moment of profound peace, everything else faded into the background: the past, the secrets, the shadows, leaving only the luminous glow of a future reborn, waiting patiently beyond the shimmering horizon. The horizon stretched endlessly, a canvas of soft pastels melting into the depths of the sea, whispering of infinite possibilities. Ella, hand in hand with her twin, moved quietly along the shoreline where fog caressed their steps and the salty air mingled with the gentle stirrings of waves. The old family photos, still damp from their release into the water, drifted lazily, vanishing into the vast embrace of the ocean, fading memories dissolving into renewal. Their silhouettes, one luminous and whole, the other a mirror image reborn, shimmered against the dawn's tranquil glow. The sky, awash in shades of rose and gold, reflected their shared peace and acceptance that the wounds of the past had become the roots of their resilience. Ella's heart, once battered by betrayal and loss, now blossomed with quiet understanding. She looked at her sister, the face she had rediscovered in the depths of her soul, and saw not a stranger but the embodiment of her regained hope. Every scar, every secret now woven into the fabric of her being, felt like armor rather than armor. The ocean songed a lullaby of endless change, lulled the tension into silence. The air around them, filled with the scent of salt and sun-warmed earth, seemed to hold its breath in reverent awe. Here, in this sacred space where sky and sea converged, their spirits united in soft, unspoken gratitude. Ella felt the weight of her journey lift, replaced by a serene tranquility, a harmony born from vulnerability turned strength. Her gaze lingered on her twin's face, and a delicate smile curved her lips, an affirmation of belonging, of forgiveness, of love reborn amid the vast, infinite expanse. Companions of shadows and secrets, they had navigated storms and shadows, emerging from the depths into the light of new beginnings. Each wave, each gust of wind whispered a promise that even in loss, beauty persists, and in embracing the past, the future is forged. As their figures faded into the whispering dawn, the scene dissolved into a breathtaking tableau, silent, still, a living testament to healing and hope. The ocean waves continued their gentle rhythm, forever changing, forever constant, a symbol of the endless cycle of renewal, emblematic of the souls reborn and the stories yet to be written. Have you ever uncovered a family secret? Share your story below.